Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself a cup of tea because today we have very interesting stories and one of them is a story about a happy OP and unexpected call from her sister who demanded OP's niece live with OP while OP would cook and clean for niece. It's a funny story, so don't forget to subscribe and I hope you'll enjoy it. So the other day I, 30, got lucky and managed to get hold of a PS5, which is like gold dust in the UK at the moment. Work has been ridiculous this year and my PS4 broke a few months back, to say I'm hyped for it and some holiday downtime is an understatement. The console finally arrived the other day and was left with my neighbor. I knocked on the door, thanked them for taking the parcel, and exchanged some pleasantries. When she casually asked if it was anything nice, I told her it was a PS5, we had the usual small talk and I went back inside, thinking nothing of it. Later we had a knock on the door from her husband, 38-ish, he said that his wife had mentioned I'd gotten a PS5 and they wanted one for their 7-year son. It was all his son wanted this year and it's been a tough year for his son as he's not been able to see his friends much, so would I consider selling it to them for what I bought it for. I said I understood, but I really didn't want to sell it as I was looking forward to playing it. That's when things got a bit weird. He huffed a little and said Christmas should be about kids and I should really consider how hard it's been for them and offered me an extra £50. I said I wouldn't be selling it for any price, I wasn't looking to make money on it, I just really wanted to play it. He left, but said he hoped I'd reconsider as you and I are a bit old for video games anyway and walked off. End of story, I thought. The next day, he comes over again, this time with his son. He said his son really wanted to see the PS5 he had heard about. The boy then said to me that's what he really wanted for Christmas and hoped Santa would get him one. I replied that hopefully he would, but it's really busy for him this year, so he might have to wait a little longer for it, but if not, I'm sure he'd get something nice instead. Another day passes, and my fiancé said they had posted something weird on social media about there's a neighborhood group, how they had thought 2020 would have made people less selfish and more giving, but they were disappointed in their neighborhood which had forgotten community spirit and how people should be more thoughtful towards the children in the street given how much they've all suffered this year. Off the back of it, my fiancé asked if I should sell them the console, just to keep the peace. Later in the day, they came around again to tell me that I had promised their son he'd be getting a PS5 for Christmas and now it would be ruined if he didn't get one. She said that I am an adult and should be thinking of kids at Christmas, not acting like one playing video games, and that I was being unbelievably selfish and cruel. He added that he didn't know how we could enjoy Christmas, knowing we were horrible people that had ruined a 7-year-old's Christmas. Now I've also heard from some people on the street that they've been talking crap about us to people, though most neighbors are just staying out of it, but we're definitely getting some daggers from the mums who lunch crew. We live in a super nice neighborhood, but it's firmly middle class, lots of private school kids called Hattie and Sebastian etc. We're definitely the youngest on the street and the weird childless couple, which I don't think PS5 Gate is helping with. My fiancé just wants to sell it to them to end it, but I'm still trying to hold firm. Honestly, I feel like I'm losing my mind at this point. I would recommend OP to keep the receipt for the PS5 handy. This is because I expect the EP's next move will be to call the police claiming OP stole the PS5 from them. They might get really fancy and claim OP also broke into their house to get it. Hey guys. Here's the list of what my mother had done to me for my life. Some people say I'm too harsh to my mom, so here are some stories from my life. My sister will be referred to as Sis. 1. Played favorites and destroying my belongings at age 6. I first noticed my mother playing favorites, my younger sister who's 3 years younger than me, when I was 6 years old, Christmas 1996. My sister got all the big presents and I got a few cheap bracelets and an ornament. My dad bought us rollerblades for Christmas that year and the next day we were outside trying them out. My sister, 3 at the time, fell over and hit her head and began crying. My mother came out of the house and began screaming at me, assuming I pushed her, which I didn't. She wasn't hearing it though and sent me to my room. A few minutes later she came into my room in a rage and smashed all of my belongings, including my Christmas presents. Half an hour later she came in and said, her words exactly, "Your room's a freaking pigsty. Clean it up now." When I asked her about it the next day, she claimed to not know what I was talking about. 2. Freaked out when I got my period for the first time. If you've seen the movie Carrie, you will understand what happened. My mother isn't as psychotic as Carrie's mum, but she went really weird. She started asking if I'd had, how heavy it was, if I knew what it meant, but she wouldn't tell me, if I was ashamed of myself and a lot of other weird questions. And every time I'd ask her to buy me pads, she never would. She'd just throw money at me and say she didn't want to know. And there were occasions when I had to ask my friends' mums for pads because my mum had no money or wouldn't spend her child support money on me because I'm not worth it. But if my sister wanted anything, she'd get it for her immediately. 3. Wouldn't call an ambulance when I fell off a horse, but called one when the same thing happened to my sister. I was about 13 when this happened. My mum and my sister were really into riding horses, but I never was, but I was so desperate for my mum's approval that I started going to pony club with them. One day my horse got spooked by something and bucked me off. He was a really big horse. I almost landed on top of a barbed wire fence and was knocked out for a few minutes. I woke to my mother screaming at me, saying, "What the bloody freaking hell do you think you're doing to stupid idiot?" She didn't even help me up. A few months later the same thing happened to my sister, but this time my mother freaked out and came into the house screaming at me to get off my useless lazy butt and help my sister, while mum called an ambulance. My sister wasn't hurt, she'd fallen off a small horse onto a pile of dirt, but she was milking the attention for everything it was worth. She was taken to the hospital and didn't go to school for the rest of the week. 4. Takes down my door because it made a noise when I closed it. When I was 12 I lost the privilege of having a bedroom door. The latch wouldn't click shut unless you gave it a harder push, and would it swing open if it wasn't clicked shut. My mum refused to fix it. One day when I was closing the door so I could change clothes, it made a little too much noise for my mother's liking. She burst into my door screaming at me to shut the door up. Then she took out the hinges and took it away. From 12 until 14 I had no bedroom door and no privacy to change my clothes or sleep with the door closed. 5. My sister and her friend broke into the school, but it was somehow my fault. This happened when I was 13. It was during school holidays and my sister and her BFF broke into the school and wrote out merit awards to each other, which was obviously a stupid idea and is how they were ought. After this happened I got the feeling that my mum was angry at me for what they'd done. This was confirmed many years later. The next story is a continuation to this. 6. Admitted to my friend's mum how much she hated me. I always knew that my mum didn't like me, but the most I was ever told was that I was an accident and that she regretted having me, but I heard from my best friend's mum a few years ago exactly what my mum thought of me. My friend was over for a sleepover one weekend and my mum was talking to my friend's mum. These are some of the things my mum said. "I just can't believe that sis would do something like that. It's more of what OP would do. I'd never done anything that would give her that idea. I don't know why anyone would be friends with OP. If I were in school I wouldn't be friends with her." 7. Destroyed my belongings because she couldn't find the broom. This happened one summer weekend day when I was 13. My mum burst into my room and demanded to know where the broom was. I said I didn't know and I hadn't been outside all day. She accused me of hiding the broom and began throwing my belongings at me. In fear of my life, I ran out of the house and ran to the police station at the other end of town. This was in 2003 and I didn't own a mobile phone. When we got back to the house and the police asked her what happened, she put on her sweet and innocent face and said, "I don't know what she's talking about. She must be on her period or something." The policeman believed her and wouldn't hear my side of the story, and he left. 8. Wanted to turn off the life support when I was in a coma. When I was 17, New Year's Eve in 2007, I suffered a spinal cord injury and brain injury after falling off a roof. I was placed under an induced coma. My dad was with me the whole time, but it took my mum 3 weeks to come, even though her partner at the time could have paid to get her there sooner. All she knew was that I'd had an accident and was in a coma. My parents were given the option to turn the life support off. My dad said no, having faith that I'd pull through, but my mum said yes and threw a tantrum when she didn't get her wish. So they were placed on my bed while I was in a coma. Rehabilitation was hard and traumatic, so I don't like talking about it, so I'll skip ahead to the next thing. 9. Threw a tantrum after my dad told me. While I was in rehab after my injury, my dad let it slip that my mom wanted to turn the life support off on me. Up until this point, I didn't know this. I called my mum and told her I never want to see her again and that if I'm dead to her, then she's dead to me. 10. Tried to steal money from her kids after our dad died. In 2009 my dad and my uncle, his brother, died in a plane crash. I was 19, my sister 16 and my brother 22. My mother was there the next day to offer her support, but nobody wanted them there. My entire family despises her. She started asking questions about the will and his assets. Information we didn't give her. We didn't know the cause of death for 3 weeks after his death, and lo and behold, she got nothing. The will was written before my parents had even met. The will gave everything to my dad's siblings, and they gave it all to me and my siblings, so long as we promised that our mother got nothing. She's tried a few times in the past few years to get money from us, but we won't talk to her. I haven't spoken to my mother in about 7 years, and I don't ever plan on seeing her again. She's a toxic person and life is better without her. My brother still talks to her from time to time, but me, my sister and the rest of the family want nothing to do with her. And me and my sister are really close. She's not entitled and I hold no resentment towards her. I love her to bits. Oh God, I don't know what people said. She's too harsh to her mom. I think they just didn't see the whole picture. OP's mom got what she deserved and that's it. I hope OP and her siblings won't be such bad parents. My niece had to move back in with her mother after the lockdown started. She lost her job and all her classes were online. Her lease was month to month, so she didn't have to worry about breaking her lease. Recently, the schools have reopened and she has started attending classes again. Problem is, her apartment, which was walking distance from her university, is now rented, parking in the area is very bad, and it's an hour one way from her mother's house on public transit. I will say now that my niece is also incredibly spoiled and is taking classes for a degree with no practical benefits. By this I mean that it will in no way help her with a career path, nor are they necessary courses for further education. Got a call from my sister asking if my niece could live with me because I live alone in a 2-bedroom house and I'm a 15-minute bus trip away from her university. I said no for several reasons. I work nights and need to sleep during the day. My niece is a very loud young woman and doesn't understand the concept of an indoor voice. Last time she stayed in the same home as me, I was sleep deprived because of her practically yelling on her phone and it affected how I did my job, resulting in a write-up. My niece is also a very messy person. I helped with a move out and the memory makes me shudder. Some of the unwashed dishes in the sink were tossed because they were beyond cleaning. She tried to just sit on random crap and text her friends and watch something. I had to take her phone and lock it in the glove box for the U-Haul we rented to get her butt moving to help. My sister still calls me an idiot for doing this. While I may have a 2-bedroom home, the second room is my office. I've been in the process of making wire wrap necklaces to sell online for extra income, and I need the area as a workspace. It's also my library for lack of a better word. I keep my collection of novels on bookshelves in there and a comfy old recliner for reading in. My niece is allergic to cats and I have 3. My sister seems to think I can keep them all either in my bedroom or locked up in the basement for the school year. Screw that right there. And this is the big one, my old sister is under the belief that my niece wouldn't have to help out with household expenses or be expected to cook for herself. She also thinks that my niece shouldn't have to get a job while in school to focus on her studies. Tried to pull the "we're family and should help each other out" card. But that didn't count for crap when my step-siblings nearly made me homeless after my stepdad died and gave me 30 days to find a new place for me and my dog. Dog-friendly buildings where I live are hard to find. The only way I would agree for my niece to live with me is that she would give me $250 a month to help cover utilities and part of the internet. Figured that is a steal considering a cheap place around her school is more than double, even triple that, plus utilities, and she could use the garage for her car for free. But I would also expect her to buy her own food and clean up after herself, like doing her own laundry, keeping her room clean and putting her dishes at least in the sink, if not the dishwasher. Would not expect her to cut the grass or shovel snow. The thought of even asking her to do this already gives me a headache. Now I'm getting texts from my both sisters telling me that I'm a horrible person and should open my home to this. That it's unreasonable to expect a 19-year-old to spend 2 hours on the bus every day, etc. Part of me feels guilty because I could move my office and workspace down into the basement, can't be a living space due to lack of windows, but I can't afford the expense of a second person in my home without them chipping in for the bills. Nor will I lock my cats away in their home. I'm sure OP did the right thing. Why would she be her 19-year-old niece's servant? She's 19, I'm sure that is a good age for making a meal for herself and doing her own laundry. She doesn't do that because her mother let her be entitled. Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about a woman who showed up at OP's house and demanded OP rent her house to her kid immediately. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.